Luke Aaron Moore. People say it's a waste of time. I have always begged to differ, and I beg to differ yet again. What a treat that semi-final performance was from Portugal. They beat Germany 2-1 in Germany, the first time they've beaten Germany in 25 years. Oh, what an occasion.
Is it a good sign when you start an episode with the sentence, people say it's a waste of time, but I disagree? Am I just saying that to your wife? Oh, people say this is a waste of time, but I disagree, this marriage. I think it's fine.
Yeah, she's one of them, though. That's the problem.
Would you say you've got the Nations League of marriages?
Well, in a sense that England haven't won it, but yeah. Look, it's one of the big three. Luke, you can't deny it. Portugal are after it. They won the first ever UEFA Nations League. They're in the final. Yeah. They're very well placed to have another good crack to see if they can win it again. Of course, they'll be playing Spain and France, sides also who have won this tournament, and they take it seriously. This is what happens. And they got their justs tonight. But come on, though. Portugal, they were good tonight. You got to say.
Yeah. I mean, I think. Apologies for those who can hear my cat in the background, by the way. We're recording this quite late at night, and he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know why.
Head spinning after that performance from Bobby Martinez's boys.
Yeah, he's full of the praise for the Portuguese lad. Look, the first half was diabolical. Let's make that absolutely clear. It was bad. The first half was bad.
There was a lovely zip to the play.
You reckon? I thought there was a lack of tempo.
Also, there's something about this time of year. It's the summer, but also international kits in their more simplicity. They pop on that green grass, don't they?
Yeah.
The Portuguese looking splendid. The German white look pristine. I thought it was a nice first half to bed us in, is how I would suggest.
I'm King Canute trying to hold back the Marcus Speller tide, and I'm never going to be able to do it because the passion that flows through you, flows through every sinew of your body for the Nations League means I can't compete with it. I haven't got the wherewithal to fight against it. But I would agree that Portugal were actually excellent in the second half, and they were really good. We really do have to point out, though, that it's a very special kind of arrogance from the good people at Amazon Prime and UEFA, or whoever it is deciding this, to say that game that most people don't know is happening between those two teams, neither of which are home nations, and we know you're already paying a $1 every year for Prime, but you are going to spend another £2.49 to watch it. And I would love to know how many people in the UK actually shelled out for this.
Well, they got a couple. They got a couple in us.
Me, you, and Finn, the producer, for sure. They got 3.
Let's be honest. If we knew it was going to cost £2.49, we'd have all gone round yours.
Yeah, Brassel's got a French stream of it. He wasn't even playing ball. Brassel's like, you haven't got Brassel on side, you're in big trouble.
I'd like the authorities to have a look into Brassel's business tonight.
Just do it. Say his address now.
No, he did. No, he did have a legitimate one, as you say, because he lost.
He wasn't doing the Prime. But yeah. and I thought the first half was quite poor. You disagree? That's fine. The second half, Portugal were much better. They were brilliant in the second half, which is kind of weird because it was almost like the Florian Wirtz goal kicked them into action, wasn't it? Because obviously Germany opened the second half with a great utilisation of the big tank up front, who I was actually really excited to see.
Yeah, they started with 6'6" striker Nick Voltemade up front, which I didn't know much about him, if I'm honest.
I've never seen him play before.
Yeah, you knew he was a big lad, and I thought to myself, "Oh right, that's what we're doing tonight, is it, Nagelsmann? That's what's happening here." I mean, I said earlier today on the Ramble on Wednesday morning that Germany have got something to prove here. They need to turn a new chapter. They obviously were not bad in the Euros. Understandable that they were beaten by that Spain side in the quarterfinal. No disgrace there. But it's ultimately a quarterfinal exit from a host nation, which to be touch disappointed with. Toni Kroos is no longer playing for them, of course, having retired from football. They've got some great talent in Wirtz. Musiala didn't play tonight, but obviously another one. Gnabry was on the bench. You start listing them off and you think, okay, they got some stuff here. But in this game, they were distinctly second best. And you could hear the noise in the stadium. There was a lot of people there tonight. They wanted it. You saw them after the game. They looked pretty crestfallen that they were defeated. So, when you see the big man starting up top, I thought, I understand it's at the end of a grueling season as well, and he maybe wants to bed new people in. But I look at this Germany side, and I looked at that starting 11, and I thought, it just doesn't fill me with that much confidence, to be honest.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I could totally understand that. They also replaced Voltemada with another big tank in full crew who got stuck in and tried to have a couple of rumbles, which I respected.
Yeah.
But Voltemada was key for the Germany goal. I mean, he's so big and such a dominant presence that it was like the Portuguese defenders, led by Ruben Diaz, were essentially just trying to claim a foul because the guy's massive. Like, you can't blame a man for being a tank. It's not an infringement being like physically impressive on its own. All he did was stand there. Ruben Diaz ran into him and then tried to claim a foul, and then Wirtz was able to take advantage of it. What was also weird about that goal was like VAR was a shambles on that. Like, what were they doing with VAR? Like, the referee seemed to go over to check offside from the monitor, but referees never check the monitor for offside. It's semi-automated.
Whether he felt it was an impingement or not. It has to have been that. That's what I assume.
Well, maybe they thought it was a foul, but it definitely wasn't a foul. I mean, you can see that with your own eyes.
Which is why maybe they thought, okay, just go and have a quick look, and it was a very quick look from the referee. So if that was what he was checking, he went, no, that's fine, on we go.
Sadly, that we couldn't get any more in-depth analysis because despite paying an extra £2.49 to watch the game, there was no punditry.
there was just shots of
They just showed like half time. They just showed like slow motion highlights with no sound.
But that's kind of. But Luke, how many times do you reference the semi-final of Euro '96 when they pan around the crowd at Wembley?
But that was before the game.
That was we got that before the game. You quite liked that, didn't you? Well, you got it before, during, and after. Actually, my only bone of contention would be after the match. I'm thinking, okay, the Portuguese are having a good time. Oh, they cut the transmission after a few minutes. I thought I could have done a couple of more minutes of that.
It was an absolute piss take, the whole thing.
I wouldn't
to be fair.
To be honest with you, I'd say that value was probably about £2.30 worth. $2.49, piss take.
And then it kicked Portugal into gear, though, didn't it?
Well, it did.
It was like they started to really move the ball around. I actually thought in the first half, even in places, there were chances.
Pedro Neto.
Ronaldo had a chance. He scuffed kind of early on. The thing about Ronaldo is it's such a weird thing because obviously, I don't know if you feel the same, but I presume you do. You don't really see him play much now because no one's watching Saudi football. You might see the odd highlight or whatever. And it is quite crazy how his feet are still really good. He seems to have still not obviously what he did have, but he's not like slow. He doesn't look that slow still,
I know what you mean.
Which is weird.
I mean, again, it is the Nations League, so the intensity is not going to be. Well, I say this. I mean, I think the intensity was comparable to.
Well, you were saying Portugal looked really fit still. It looked like they were pretty sharp.
Well, I thought, considering, I mean, what have the last, I don't know, what's the last week looked like for Vitinha and the other PSG boys? Probably, a good time has been had. Yeah, okay, he didn't start the game, but, when they all played, they still look fit and sharp. Again, considering the season. I mean, to be fair to Bruno Fernandes, that would have been like a holiday for him tonight.
Oh, yeah.
He'd have been like, hang on, I'm playing passes, and they're getting on the end of them. They're controlling the ball.
It's basically like when for him, it's basically like when you get pissed on holiday and you never get a hangover. Because you just wake up, go down by the pool, have another cocktail, and you're buzzing again.
Yeah, everyone's laughing at my jokes. They're loving this. Is amazing.
Well, I've never experienced that, but I know what you mean.
I thought Portugal looked impressive.
Because he had a chance early on, is what I meant, and he pulled into a good position. Yes. He showed the pace to get into there to support attack. It was after about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
He peeled back and found the space, and obviously scuffed a shot. But it was almost like that was. I guess because the commentary team also were massively fond of reminding you every time he touched the ball that he's 40 years old. Like you're kind of conditioned into thinking that you're watching like an old man, but he doesn't look like an old man. I know he's changed his game. I know he's adjusted. I know he's not as fast as he was. And I know he's not looking to get on the ball every 10 seconds and really affect things. He's much more likely to be on the end of moves and stuff like that and show like clever movement. But like you couldn't honestly say. And I've probably been critical of him in the last couple of years, just hanging around when there's other players ready to make their move in international football, like Gonzalo Ramos or even Diogo Jota, who, to be fair, has had a bit of a quiet season.
You were scathing, Luke, is
I think
what
I'm happy to be scathing about Cristiano Ronaldo on any subject all the time.
Yeah.
But I don't think he looked out of place at all.
I do agree with you there.
Yeah.
I have to agree. As I say, everyone will say the intensity is not the same as a Euros game or a World Cup game. I think there are, not as a World Cup semi-final or a Euro semi-final, no, but I think you're playing against a decent side, at least on paper, in Germany, and as I say, at the end of a grueling season, although has Ronaldo had a grueling season, but he is 40, lest we forget. I think there was an intensity to this match, and I was actually quite impressed with him. As you mentioned in the first half, I wondered how much of the second half he would last, but he seemed to go, quite a lot of the distance, didn't he? It was in the 80-something minute, I think. He
got subbed off about a minute from the end, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And to be honest with you, I was thinking to myself, Portugal, this is the kind of overarching story of Portuguese football since we've been watching football, is that they've got some fantastic midfielders. They've got great wide options. They'll have a handy keeper in there somewhere, some good defenders, and it's the player up top, isn't it? How often did we hear the name Pauletta when he was playing up? So it was, that guy, yeah, okay. And we're always lacking that striker. And with Cristiano Ronaldo, I thought, is it kind of the same? Is he going to get? And then, of course, he bloody well scores the winner. Times his run just to perfection.
It's a great striker's goal.
It really was.
Run, yeah.
And it's not just the goal. You're right, Luke. I think his movement and what he did, you have to give a bit of credit. And people might say, well, come on, lads, it's Ronaldo. Yeah, but at times he gets in the way of this Portugal side. I don't know if I would start him at the World Cup next summer, because he'll be 41, for crying out loud. And I do wonder if he would be better when the going gets tough in the knockouts of the tournament next summer, which I would fancy Portugal to be in, to go far with this side. I wonder if he's better off the bench for the last 10, 15 minutes when the opposition are tiring, if they need something.
I wonder if he's going to accept that, though, eh?
Well, he cuts a different figure these days. I think he knows he's almost on borrowed time, really, in this Portugal team. And you see his celebrations, you see how he acts. He's no longer acting like the big man, because I think he accepts that now. And I think he almost is... He realises that he's fortunate to be there. And when I say he's fortunate, it's not because he hasn't put the hard yards in and so on, but the fact is he hasn't had the injuries. They haven't had any young players coming through, really, that should definitely take his place. Because you mentioned Jota and Ramos and one or two others. But what about Conceição coming on? And he man of the match, of course. Because you mentioned it, that the Germany goal kind of, give a rocket up Portugal's backside, and Roberto Martinez made some substitutions, and when he brings on Conceição and he brings on Vitinha, you're thinking they got some options. They have some options on that bench.
And Conceição is an absolute flyer.
Yeah,
he's a flyer. It's great. And we obviously remember his dad playing, and his dad being a good forward as well.
Scored a hat trick against Germany in Euro 2000, of course.
Yeah, that was a brilliant hat trick as well. Because I know you remember it.
I do. Yeah,
people listening might not remember it. It was against Germany in what round was it in Euro 2000?
It was the first round.
Remember? Yeah. Okay. Right. The first goal Sergio Conceição scores in that game is like a brave header, and Oliver Kahn is an absolute dick and just tries to completely take him out and smashes him into the net.
Oliver Kahn's a dick. I won't have it. I will not have it.
The second goal Conceição scores is a P-roller right at Oliver Kahn, and he spills it into his own net. And the third goal is a beautiful finish into the bottom corner. But Kahn is comes out of that with absolutely no credit whatsoever, and is in the lineage of just awful blokes who played in goal for Germany. But Francisco made a massive difference because it's so funny how in football it doesn't matter what you do tactically necessarily to mitigate the fact that defenders will always be really vulnerable to pace, particularly if they're caught in certain positions because the ball's been turned over quickly or they're trying to push for something. He was able to just fly down that right hand side.
Fly is the word, yeah.
Yeah, and he looks like a really exciting young player, actually. He made the difference. He gave him some impetus, and I've said this over and over again on the show over the last however many years. If you're a wide forward that always wants to make things happen, and you're brave and you want to be positive, you can make such a difference. If you're not deterred by not everything going well and you stick at it, you can really make a massive difference. And I thought you made a huge difference tonight.
Yeah, because in the first half, as I mentioned earlier, Pedro Neto, he showed his pace and he was kind of troubling them. But when it came to the punch, the defender would make a tackle, or he would just a wrong decision, or it just didn't fall for him. And I appreciate that. That's in the first half when the defenders are a bit more fresh. But when Conceição comes on, it's a beautiful goal. The way he kind of digs that ball out from under his feet to curl it right in the corner. And it had to be something special to beat ter Stegen, because I think if Germany had have won that game, Ronaldo doesn't score, they managed to win it 2-1 or whatever, ter Stegen would probably have been man of the match. He made some great saves in there.
I think he had a shaky start though, and then he kind of grew into the game. He had a brilliant double save late on. It was unbelievable. But in the first few minutes, when the commentator did quite a heartfelt bit about how long Marc-Andre ter Stegen had to wait patiently to be Germany's number one, he instantly responded by unceremoniously punting the ball straight out of play. And I thought he had a couple of shaky handling moments early on, but he grew into the game. And Portugal were laying Germany's goal under siege.
He should have been more than 2-1.
Yeah, and he did come out with some. You have to say, he did come out with some really great saves. You have to say that.
Yeah, I kind of this. If you're a fan of Portugal, I know it's only one game, but I think this bodes well for them in the bigger picture under Martinez, because at the Euros last time round, again, it's a star-studded Portugal side. Let's be honest. You look at the names in there. They've got a decent keeper. You've got Ruben Diaz, for crying out loud, at the back. João Neves in there as well. Then the midfield three of Bernardo Silva, Ruben Neves, and Bruno Fernandes, of course. You've got Vitinha on the bench. You can bring on João Palhinha, as he did right at the end. It brought on Conceição. You can bring on Rafael Leao as well. Up front, you've got Trincão's there, Pedro Neto. The names are just kind of flowing off the tongue. But they flattered to deceive a bit last time in the Euros, and what did they go out to France really in quite a
on penalties, bit
of a slugfest, wasn't it? And it wasn't that inspiring. They were kind of, and that's what I thought. So, all joking aside, in that first half, I thought, are we going to see some lovely touches, a bit of pace, but kind of more of the same here? That they're going to threaten to create and then not create. And the first goal, of course, is it's a beauty. It's an effort from range, but that seemed to kind of lift them. It seemed to kind of give them a bit of belief. I just wonder if we're seeing a bit more of what Roberto Martinez wants to do with this side, because they've got the talent in there. And they really could make an impression at the World Cup next summer.
Yeah, and Martinez has got a challenge ahead of him, because he's, of course, overseen a massively talented Belgian side as well, and they've not been able to get it over the line, not been able to do it, right? And the pressure that came along of him managing this golden generation at Belgium never came to pass.
I'll always say that they in 2018 getting to that semi-final, finishing third, was big.
Commensurate with the ability they had at his disposal. They had to be looking at doing something more, and they didn't. And now I agree with you in the way that it feels like they've got a lot of talent at its disposal at Portugal as well. I wonder what it means if they win the Nations League. Is that going to be something that's going to be held up in amazing esteem for him as a coach, or is it going to be they need to do something next season in the World Cup? Because the World Cup next summer, mate, is going to be a bum fight. Have you seen how many games there's going to be? It's ridiculous. It's going to be crazy to watch.
If they can win another UEFA Nations League, then I will hold it up in very high esteem with Roberto Martinez. And if I meet him in the bogs at the Cottage Pavilion at Craven Cottage again, I will certainly tell him that. I
think you should. I think that's probably what motivates him, actually. Yes. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if we had seen the post-match interviews tonight, I wouldn't be surprised if he dedicated tonight's victory to that inspiration you gave him.
Lovely little chap he met in the...
If the Nations League, had anything about, if UEFA had anything about them whatsoever, these semi-finals should be two legs anyway. I mean, they need to be squeezing more out of this.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. A great win for Portugal. As I say, they look forward to the final. It'll be a tough game, whether it's Spain or France. Sad for Germany, but the good news for Germany, Luke, is that they can still win the bronze.
You're still thinking about the bad news, aren't you, Germany? But you have got a third, fourth playoff to play on Sunday.
Yeah. And some people may say that's a pointless game. Well, I would remind everybody how we celebrated long into the night when England got that bronze medal at the UEFA Nations League in 2019.
Literally can't remember who he played. Was it Netherlands?
Come on. Netherlands.
Who was it?
Switzerland, won on penalties. Jordan Pickford scored.
Yeah, sorry, mate.
Yeah.
Don't take it personally.
I'm not taking it personally, but if I was the king, I would, even though it was the queen at the time. But look, Germany, it's another defeat for Nagelsmann and Germany on home soil. What do you think of them then, going into next summer? Because I don't think they're convincing at all.
I'll tell you what I am convinced by.
You're going to write them off. Come on, let's write them off.
Julian Nagelsmann, moustache and considerable weight gain. A lovely look. He looks like a dishevelled detective in the German noir drama.
He does. He really does.
And I'm here for it. When I saw him get up off the bench, I was like, "Oh, I like that. That is fucking good." Yeah. Lovely little pencil moustache, which is always a risk for a German. And he's got a good bit of timber on him, which is lovely stuff. Enjoying himself. I like to see that. I'm not taking the piss. I'm not fat shaming him. I genuinely love to see a man enjoying.
You're fat loving him.
Yeah, I am. And so I'm pleased about that.
Did you see him having a go at the fourth official? He tried to have a go at the fourth official, just went, nah, just walked off.
Yeah, he really dismissed it.
I did rate that.
But in the as you already kind of touched on, look, they had a home advantage in the Euros, and Spain were a good side. They went on to win it. But the manner in which they went out was also actually quite dramatic. Like they scored late on. Wirtz actually scored late on to save them after their goal down. And then Marino scored, didn't he, in the very last minute of extra time to send them home. That's a heartbreaker when you're a host nation.
Yeah. And I understand that can happen. I really do. But if you look at the tournament as a whole, they impressed against Scotland, but it was only Scotland, and Scotland were down to 10 men pretty early on.
That's right.
They then beat Hungary. And again, okay, the game you would expect them to win, and Hungary showed about as much attacking intention as Scotland did, and then they drew Switzerland, and then against Denmark when the heavens opened in that game, as they did tonight. Oddly, they did tonight. The game was delayed tonight. Anyway, they beat Denmark, and on another day, like Denmark had chances early on. So I understand. I'm going through, going, they won that game, but they won that game, but they won that. I just felt that in that tournament, they showed a bit of promise, and it felt more like, say, like World Cup 2006 Germany, in that there was maybe a few players that we didn't know so much about. They didn't win it. They went out in sort of heartbreaking fashion to the side that went on to win it, so there's no shame in that. But you thought, there's some green shoots there. And I think everybody after that World Cup in 2006, where they hosted it, they go on to Euro 2008, they get to the final, and then that team... And as some of those players come to fruition in 2014. With this Germany side, that could happen, and I understand I'm jumping forward a bit there, but I don't get that impression from them. I'd be amazed if they won the World Cup next summer.
Well, I mean, their record in the World Cup since 2014 has been pretty diabolical.
Incredibly
by their own standards. I think they've won 2 games in total since then.
Which is mad.
Right? Yeah, so clearly there's a problem. Like, Nagelsmann was a massive get for them, wasn't he? Because he was like... It's kind of interesting, the amount of managers in international football now where like they've just been tasked with win that tournament. You know, Ancelotti, Brazil, Nagelsmann clearly isn't going to stay in international football for that long. He's still young. It was, like I say, an amazing get for them, and he's just been tasked with doing really well with the challenge that's right in front of him. Tuchel at England as well is the same thing. Yeah. So they all can't win it. Do you know what I mean? So some of them are going to be disappointed. I don't think they were great tonight. They've not been great in tournaments in recent years. Even you go to the Euros in 2021, they obviously got knocked out by England. England were pretty good at beating them. So there's challenges ahead of them. There's things to do. Nagelsmann, presumably, whether they do well or not next summer, Nagelsmann will leave anyway. I mean, so it depends what comes next, I suppose.